Do you have that friend that just can't seem to make the right decision? And this may show up in multiple ways. It may show up as, they decide to get in a fight and go to jail, or they decide to gamble with their money on, it might not even be straight gambling, it might be bad business decisions or whatever, but they end up losing all their money because they take risky bets on that. Or they might say inappropriate things. They might do things that, you're like, man, you're like, that's not acceptable. You can't do that. Anybody have a friend like that? In most cases, those people know that they're not doing the right thing. They know that they're not making the right decision, but they just can't stop themselves. It's kind of like an ADHD type of thing where, you see something and you just can't not look at it. You lose focus on what you're focusing on, and you just have to look. It's something that you just have to do. OCD, same type of thing. They have to do those behaviors over and over again. And this is related to a very small part of the prefrontal cortex called the orbital frontal cortex. And there is a simple test that we can do. I'm going to give you a test at the very end of this that you can do at home that is very simple. It's not a normalized test, so you can't compare it to data of where everybody else is, but it's going to give you a pretty decent idea of how yours works. First, let's look a little bit at what it does. Really, when we look historically, the most research came out of this, or the first most famous case anyway, was Phineas Gage. He was a rail worker in the mid 1800s, and he worked in explosives. Some sort of accident happened, and a metal rod went up through and out his skull. And amazingly, he lived through this. Went through his orbital frontal cortex, among others. But before all of the accident happened, everybody said, he was your stereotypical church-going, straight-laced, normal, good guy. He was married. He was very, very adamant about going to church every week. Didn't gamble. Didn't drink much. Things like that. After the accident, he still had all of his intelligence and all of that stuff, but his behavior changed pretty radically. He gambled all the time. He was womanizing. He was cussing. He's just constantly doing things that really led to trouble for him. And obviously this is an extreme case on this. You're not going to see something like that very often, but this is where a lot of the research really started is, you see something like that and they examine him after death, and that's really what happened is it went through his prefrontal cortex and the orbital frontal cortex was destroyed. That didn't allow him to present the behaviors that he really wanted to present or that he had presented before. Once that's damaged, he couldn't make that right decision. Now, most people aren't going to have that, right? I mean, that's just, most people aren't going to have damage in that way. But the last part of the brain to develop is the prefrontal cortex. Human brains are born very immature. We have to go through a small birth canal. When we went to bipedalism, the birth canal shrank, and humans have to be born more immature with that. That makes us very, very susceptible to the environment. It gives us an incredible ability to learn, but it also makes us very susceptible to the environment. When we have that susceptibility, little mistakes can happen, and that's what we call missed milestones. We have the childhood milestones. Did they roll over on time? Did they crawl on time? Did they walk on time? Did they stand on time? Did they develop language on time? All of these things. We can have missed milestones that aren't really milestones per se. We don't get complete development of those areas. So it might not show up as a missed milestone, but it's a little bit of a delay or a little bit of an immaturity in that area. With the prefrontal cortex being the last part that develops, it's the reason you can't rent a car until you're 25 or a hotel room until you're 25 is they want you to be able to make good decisions. So they're waiting for that prefrontal cortex to finish developing. If we have some of those other downstream areas that aren't as developed, that leaves a little vulnerability to that prefrontal cortex too. And this is where some of this can be delayed. But if we don't have the ability to make good choices on that, obviously it affects life. And this can affect us throughout life. It can affect, learning and attention when we're in school, making inappropriate behaviors, fighting or cussing or over-sexualized comments or different things like that can go with this. Smell and immune function can be thrown off. Interpersonal relationships can be affected in different ways through this. So there are a lot of different things that this area does. What we do when we examine this is we look at different functions and we compare to how all of this is working. And the reason for that is all of them have different functionalities. The more tests that we can come up with and do for each different area, the better idea we have of the overall functionality. But again, this area is very vulnerable, and do things like toxins or chemicals or technology or different things like this, are they affecting this area? Likely so. I mean, there's a lot of research that is coming out, and it's very specialized research on this toxin or this chemical or this type of technology, and it's very non-specific in what type of effect it has. Everybody's going to be different on that because we all have different experiences. We all have different epigenetic markers. We have different genetic markers. We have those different experiences, and life just puts us in a different place. So everybody develops that at a different rate or to a different degree. This leaves some people with a little bit of weakness in that area. So what can we do on that area? And I'm just going to give you a test today. Like, there are different things that we could do to stimulate that. Like I said, we can use, the different functionality of that area to stimulate that and drive more maturity, drive more connectivity, drive more balance between the two sides. And that can help to decrease emotionality, or decrease those inappropriate behaviors, or improve immune function, or improve smell, or different things like that. But we've got to have a variety of different things. The test that I want you to do is going to be best done with a friend. If you have any essential oils, or you could use like coffee grounds and vanilla, something like that, but you're going to have it in a way that you can't tell what it is. So you could either blindfold yourself if you're being tested, blindfold your friend if they're being tested, and you could put that up to their nose. What we want to do on this is test one nostril at a time, though. So you just plug one nostril. You would have them bring the material in until you can smell it. You let them know when you can smell it. You identify it, set it off, measure the distance there. Then you're going to switch sides and do the exact opposite with the other side. You're going to want to use a different smell on the other side, though, because if you already know what the smell is, then it's pretty easy to extrapolate and make yourself believe that you're sensing it further out than it is. So if you can accurately identify those you measure, are they the same distance? Are they two different distances? Where can you smell those at? That gives us a little bit better idea of your functionality in this area. Now, essential oils are probably your easiest way to go about it, but like I said, you can use things like coffee grounds or vanilla or different things like that. Whatever you can recognize, and you're going to be able to smell strong enough that you can smell it at a little bit of a distance. So I hope that this helps you. I hope that you find this exciting. I hope you actually test yourself, because it is a pretty cool test. And when we test this in our office, people are amazed at how bad their smell is. And we see some things that you're like, wow, how do you not know that that's there? And COVID has made that worse, but in general, there are some people that really struggle with their smell, and they're usually shocked when they are. So this might surprise you. If you are interested in just figuring out the balance of your brain, if we take the part of the brain that's not working as well, and we know which side of it is, we have a pretty good idea of what functionality is going to be there, and what types of things that we should look for. So if you want to compare this with your hemispheric balance, there's a free checklist over in the bio there. Obviously, if you like this, like the video, subscribe, share, whatever you need to do. Let me know that you like it. The more I have an idea of what we are benefiting from on this, the more that type of information I can share with you. So I love you, I appreciate you, and I hope that this helped you.